And today we are going to be talking about guiding perspectives with a focus on ecosystems. So you should have already read chapter 2 in your textbook, which discusses different perspectives and ecosystems. And if you haven't read that yet, please pause this, go back and read the chapter, and then hopefully this will shed some light on whatever you might be confused about. As always, you can post questions in the discussion board Q&A, or you can email me if you have specific concerns that you don't want the rest of the class to be aware of. Okay. So your learning objectives for this week are to describe the contributions of various theories and perspectives supporting generalist social work, apply the concepts of ecosystems theory to better understand how humans function, and to utilize vocabulary correctly to identify client systems. So again, if you haven't already read the textbook, go back, keep these things in mind. These are the things you're going to want to pull out. There is a lot of vocabulary in this chapter, so you're going to need to remember some of those things for your quiz. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what theory versus perspective actually means. You've each taken Human Services 101, where you got an overview of social welfare, 103, where you learned how to perform a clinical interview. Your 103 textbooks told you that there are many different theories used in counseling, and all of them require that you develop active listening skills and understand clinical interview techniques, if you remember that. So when we talk about theories and perspective, that's kind of the same thing. There's many different theories that can guide social work interventions, but the ecosystems theory, which we're really going to focus on, is the one that kind of is the guiding one. So it's kind of like the active listening of theory, if that makes sense. You may have heard that social work is both an art and a science. Theories and perspectives are where the science comes in. So each theory that you're going to learn about has been developed through research, through people's experience often, then followed up by research. But there is scientific support for most of the theories that you guys will learn about. Becoming a social worker takes more than good active listening skills and the ability to connect, although those things are irreplaceable. But it also takes the time to understand what questions to ask and understand why we're asking those questions. And the theories and perspectives are what are going to help us understand the why of what we do, which will help us get better at what we do. The terms are often used interchangeably. There are some distinctions that we're going to talk about here. So theories are used to organize information. They're often level specific, meaning that they are either a micro level theory, a meso level theory, or a macro level theory. They're used to explain behavior. So it can help us understand why a person does some of the things that they do. And it can help us guide our intervention through specific methods or techniques. Whereas a perspective is more of a general way of knowing, right? It's a lens that we can use to look at something. It provides a frame of understanding, so we know where to look at certain things, and it's more universal in general. So just to confuse you a little bit more, ecosystems has been called a theory, a perspective, and a framework. We do use these terms a lot interchangeably. Just so you know, you are going to develop your own theories. Not that you're going to develop your own theories, but you're going to adopt different theories as you move forward in your education and when you move forward in your career. Ecosystems is kind of the lens that we use to understand how to view people from a social work perspective. But the more specific theories are what you're going to use ultimately to guide many of your interventions. I hope that makes sense. And again, post your questions in the Q&A forum. Okay, so in Module 2, we talked about social work as a profession and the idea that generalist social workers can work in many different settings, performing a variety of tasks with different populations. As you move forward in your education and career, you'll find which setting is right for you, and you will adopt a theory or perhaps pull ideas from several different theories, which will help you organize your thoughts for your specific job and the population you're working with. So a lot of social workers do pull bits and pieces from a variety of different theories, and we call that being eclectic. So if you hear that a social worker's perspective tends to be eclectic, That's what that means. It means that they're aware of many different theories and they pull techniques from different ones. And often they'll use whatever they think is going to work best to fit with that client. So you're going to be introduced to many of these theories in your BSW and or MSW programs. As a competent social worker, you should really get familiar with the ones that are of interest to you and the ones that really apply to your specific populations. So there's a list here of some of those theories. You are not going to be tested on these things right now. You might have heard of some of them: behavioral theory, cognitive behavioral theory, critical theory. Lifespan development is those things like Erik Erikson, which you probably learned about in your Psych 101 class. Social constructionist theory, family systems theory. I mean, obviously, I don't need to go down the whole list, but you guys get the idea. So at this point, I want you to focus on the ecosystems perspective, which is the primary orientation of the social work profession, okay? Because it's going to give us just a basic way of understanding human behavior, and hopefully that will make more sense as we move forward. Okay, so where does the term ecosystems come from, right? It's kind of a big word. It sounds a little intimidating. To me, it sounds like biology, which makes sense because that's exactly where it does come from. So the social work profession is interdisciplinary by nature, meaning that we're taught a variety of different subjects to help inform the way we think. In addition to your human services classes, you've each taken or will take biology, psychology, sociology, history, politics, and other subjects. These courses were chosen carefully to help you build a foundational knowledge. So we as a profession are eclectic in that we pull things from a variety of different fields of study. And the reason that we do that is because humans are complex. And biology comes in when we talk about ecosystems because the biological concept of an ecosystem means that all organisms are related to one another and to their physical surroundings. All things are interconnected and we impact them and they impact us. So most generalist social workers use the ecosystems theory as their general frame of reference or a way to organize their thinking about a client or case. Ecosystems reminds us to take a look at the whole picture, the person in their environment, so the person in their context. There are a few things more dangerous than stripping things of their context. If you've ever heard about, like a phrase being pulled out of context or hearing something out of context, sometimes we can think some pretty awful things about people when we don't take the time to think about or understand why they have made certain decisions or choices. So ecology means the branch of biology that deals with relations of organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings. And that's where the eco comes from, right? And the system means a set of connected things or parts forming a complex whole, or a set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network. So again, all things are related, all things are connected, nothing exists totally by itself. We're all kind of a product of our environment, we're all impacting our environment is impacting us, and it's really important to look at the person within their environment and how the person is functioning in their environment, something called goodness of fit, which we're going to get to when we talk about the vocabulary in this chapter. So just to give you a brief overview, systems theory was originally developed by Urie Bronfenbrenner in the 1970s. He was a developmental psychologist, and he was really looking at kids, and he believed that as a person develops, they're impacted by everything in their surrounding environment, so people, places, and things. So I'm sure you've heard things about children like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or you're a product of your environment. That's kind of where this idea was generated, right? So that people are taking in all things around them. So this theory is a great fit for social work because it emphasizes the interaction between a person and their environment rather than focusing only on one or the other. So Again, all things are interconnected. Individuals are parts of families, are parts of groups, are parts of community, are parts of society, and society impacts communities and impacts groups and impacts families and impacts individuals. So a transaction is the process by which people continually shape their environments and are shaped by them over time. So a transaction means it's not just it's not just what I'm saying to you, it's what you're saying back to me. I hope that makes sense. So it's a reciprocal relationship. People and environments can change. People respond to environmental demands, and the social environment adapts to the demands of people. And goodness of fit refers to a balance between systems and results in positive feedback. So when people are surrounded by positive things and they fit well within their environment, they can continue to thrive, right? And when there's a problem with the person or within the environment or the interaction, the transaction between the two, then we have a poor fit. So it's important to look at not only the person, but also the environment that they're in. And the environment means a lot of things. So think about what is involved in the physical environment alone, right? The physical environment is where I live. So right now, if you look in my background, you can see that I am in a room with a window. There is a picture of my kids on the wall. There's a desk in here. There's a lamp over there, a printer, kind of a mess in here. And in a few minutes, you might hear one of my kids knock on the door because I am not only in my house, but I'm in my house with my family. So those people are people that I interact with every day. Those things, you think they're part of the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, or the macrosystem. This is where we get a little tricky. So if we think back to micro, meso, and macro from your first chapter on generalist social work, the terms here, microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem, are very much related to those things. So when we're thinking about what exists on our microsystem, we're thinking about the people and the things that we interact with on a daily basis. So I'm in my house every day. My home is part of my microsystem. My family is part of my microsystem. I interact with my family every single day. And when it comes to my boss is part of my microsystem, right? But the college that I teach at and where you guys attend, that's part of my mesosystem because that is a structure within itself. So it's going up another level. I hope this makes sense to you. The church that you go to, if you are a person who goes to church, the church would be part of your mesosystem because it's another system within your community, but that you interact with on a regular basis, and that maybe my kids' schools are part of my mesosystem. And then the exosystem is a little bit different, and I'm going to actually come back to that later because it's not something that I really want you guys to spend a lot of time focusing on right now. I included it here because it is in your book, but we're going to come back to that one. Right now I want you to see the parallels between the microsystem, mesosystem, and macrosystem. So within our macrosystem is also cultural influences, it's our political environment, it is our society as a whole. So those things are part of my macrosystem. So the elected officials right now, you know, all of these things are interactive, right? So they go from smaller to larger. And everything is connected. I hope this is making sense so far. Again, please post your discussions, your questions in the discussion board. On the discussion board, sorry. Okay, so we have some more terms here in terms of what is a system. So systems are structures in which interdependent people interact. So they exist on every level, right? One person is a system, can be viewed as a system and as the focal point. So if your client is one person, an individual, that person is a system because they're made up of smaller systems, which is where we get into like the biology of everything. They interact with other systems around them, including the other members of their family, the family as a whole, a group they might be part of. So for instance, a class that they're taking, you're part of a group when you're taking a class. The job that you have, right? So all of those things are systems within themselves, but a person individually can also be a system, okay? If you're viewing the focal system as the family, then you're going to be looking at whoever maybe lives in a household. So maybe it's two parents, or maybe it's one parent, maybe there's one or two or 10 children, maybe there's one or two grandparents, or an aunt or an uncle, whoever is, whoever those members of the family consider to be the primary family is going to be the focal point, the focal system that you would be working with if you were working in a family treatment setting. I'm making this, this sounds complicated, guys, but hopefully it's making sense. So systems are structures in which interdependent people interact. They can be large, they can be small. And there are large systems and there are small systems. Okay. Groups of people are identified as systems because they interact with each other. So again, you as a class are a system. You as a human services major, that's a larger system than the class system itself. You as a student at Suffolk County Community College, again, so larger system, but that you're a part of and that you're a member of. So you're part of that, each of those groups, and each of those groups is a system. Okay. Patterns of relationships or shared characteristics separates one group from other groups in the environment. So again, your shared characteristics are that you're all planning on becoming social workers. If you're talking about your group as a class, as a human services majors. As a class, your shared characteristics are that you're all participating in an online class. There's obviously larger groups as well. If you want to think about, ethnic groups, gender groups, right? I'm a member of the female gender, and so I can be grouped in with women at times. So there's larger groups within the community that you might be part of, okay? A holon is each system is composed of a smaller system and is part of a larger system. So the holon is the system in itself, and the understanding that every system contains smaller systems and larger systems. So again, you as an individual are a system. You have smaller systems and you have larger systems that you're a part of. And if you look at Suffolk Community College as a system in itself, it obviously has smaller systems. So if we go down, smaller systems of Suffolk Community College would include human services majors, nursing majors, political science majors, math majors, general studies. All of those groups are smaller systems within the college, right? And then there's also, the college is part of a larger system. Suffolk County Community College is part of the SUNY system. And the SUNY system is part of the higher education system in this country, right, which is part of the educational system in this country. So you can see how each system can get smaller and each system can get larger. Subsystems are small systems within a system. We use the word system a lot here. Okay, so a set of siblings would be a subsystem within the family. Parents are another subsystem within the family. These two have different roles, right? Children have one set of roles, parents have another set of roles, and even though they're all part of the family system, they're each their own subsystem. Each individual member of a family is also a subsystem, okay? And another example would be human services majors are a subsystem of Suffolk County Community College students, okay? Structure is the organization of the system at a point in time. And hierarchy refers to the flow of power. So in terms of our class, again, the hierarchy would be me and then you, because as your professor, there's a power dynamic involved where I get to give you grades and I have to evaluate your performance and judge you on it, right? So that implies a power dynamic where I am at the top of a hierarchy, okay? Boundaries refer to the degree of permeability. So how easily can we move from one system to another? How easily can I get information from another system, gather resources from another system to bring into my system? Do I give information out easily? So an example of a closed system is often like a family that has a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of family secrets, right? So children who witness domestic violence are often taught not to tell anybody because they don't want CPS to come in and take the kids away, and so there's secrets and there's a closed system, and most of the time people will rely on each other. The family will rely on each other to meet its own needs. So you're not going to have kids going outside of the home and trying to find resources elsewhere because they're taught not to do that. And in an open system, so a family maybe that wasn't keeping secrets might be considered an open system. They might be getting resources from a school or from an agency. They might be sharing their own resources with neighbors or family friends or things like that. But those things are called boundaries. So if they have firm boundaries, or I'm sorry, if they have closed boundaries, there's not a lot of interaction with the outside systems, and if they have open boundaries, there is a lot of interaction with the outside systems. Systems attempt to maintain equilibrium, so in other words, they try to stay balanced, they try to maintain homeostasis. So you do whatever you can to try to keep your system moving the way that it's supposed to move, and if something is broken, then you try to bring in something to fix it, or you change a behavior to try to fix it. There's even more terms. Put your seatbelts on, guys. Okay, wholeness. The objects or elements within a system produce an entity that is greater than the additive sum of its parts. So you guys as a class are more than each one of you individually, because each one of you individually has your own things that you're doing, but then as a class you can do additional things together as a whole system, okay? Because you can rely on each other, you can pull resources from each other to create one larger project, let's say. Relationship is the patterning and structuring among the elements in a system are as important as the elements themselves. So it's not just how well Lindsay gets along with Katie, it's also how well Katie and Lindsay get along with Cassandra, and how well Katie, Lindsay, and Cassandra get along with Mike, and how well all of you guys communicate with each other. So the relationship is just as important as any one of you guys individually in terms of what you're going to get out of this. An open system, I talked about that already. So a system with permeable boundaries, which can exchange information with outside systems. A closed system has impermeable boundaries, which means it's not exchanging information or resources with the outside. Negative feedback means a system requires change in behavior in order to reach its goals. So if whatever you're doing as a system, you're not getting to where you need to get, and that means you're getting negative feedback and you have to change something. Positive feedback is when the system is working effectively to achieve its goals, so nothing needs to change. Mutual causality is how we relate to others is both interactive and reactive. So that means that, again, everything I say is going to have an impact on you guys. Hopefully that impact right now is not you getting more confused about what you read, but that you're getting less confused about what you read. And it also means that I am going to respond to what you guys tell me. So if you email me and say I have no idea what you're talking about, that will create another response in myself, which will be to, okay, how can I figure out how to explain this better? So it's a back and forth, and it's mutual causality. A nodal event is a change that is unexpected and can create temporary havoc in systems as they attempt to regain equilibrium. Basically, this is something big, right? A nodal event is like something that's going to change the structure of the system. So it might mean that there's a death in the family or a close friend passed away. It might mean losing your job that you had for several years. It might mean getting into a car accident that is really traumatic for you. A nodal event is something big that can really, really throw your whole system out of whack. Okay. Okay, so here is an example of Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, also called ecosystems. So in the middle we can see the microsystem, right, which here is the individual and it's a child. So now part of the child itself is the focal system here, and that's the microsystem. The child interacts regularly with its immediate family child care center and its neighborhood play area. All of these things are their own systems as well, and they are outside of the microsystem in this case, because in this case, the microsystem, the focal system, is the individual. So the mesosystem then, in this case, when the individual is the microsystem and is the focal system, the mesosystem here is the other systems that they interact with on a regular basis, including the neighborhood, the immediate family, the child care. Okay? The exosystem, which I promised you guys I was going to come back to, is what we would usually think about as the mesosystem if we're talking about generalist practice. And so you might hear these things used interchangeably. But friends and neighbors, your workplace, community health services, so your doctor's office, your extended family. So these things here are called your exosystem, but they can also be referred to as the mesosystem. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but I want to make sure you guys are aware that these terms are sometimes used interchangeably. And then the macrosystem are the values that you learn about in this country, the things you're brought up with, the laws that you have to abide by, the customs, right? The political system. Those things are part of the macro system. So I want you guys to think for a minute about what, if you're looking at yourself as a focal system, what are the other systems that you interact with on a regular basis? And who are those people that are represented there? And so, like, what does your mesosystem look like? And then what does your exosystem look like? Who are the other, what are the other systems that you interact with on a regular basis? And then what kinds of things in the macro system do you think might be having an impact on you? Are there any laws that are having an impact on you? Are there any laws that, or cultural customs that you celebrate that are having an impact on you? Are there certain values that you hold that help determine your behavior that have to do with the way you were brought up or where you were brought up? Can you think of any values that exist in this country that might be different from values that you think might exist in other countries, and how has that impacted you? And do you contribute to those values by your behaviors that you participate in on a regular basis? So ecosystems in practice. So you guys just learned a whole bunch of vocabulary. And you can go back and watch that video as many times as you want. Hopefully not too many times, because I don't know if it went as smoothly as I wanted it to. But what does this look like? Why are we talking about all this? Because it sounds more confusing than it actually is. Ecosystems is used to identify the focal system. So whenever you meet a client for the first time, you want to ask, who is the focal system? Am I dealing just with an individual? Am I dealing with a family? Am I dealing with a group? Who's the primary client? And then what is included in their microsystem and their mesosystem? Okay, so who are they interacting with on a daily basis? What's happening inside the system? So if this is an individual, is there a mental illness? Is there a physical illness? Is there a disability of some kind? Is there a good sense of self? Is there confusion about their roles, or maybe their identity? So what is happening? Those things are internal things. What's happening inside the system? What's happening outside the system? Or is that person, is that individual getting along well with the people that they live with, which might be their parents, or it might be their significant other, it might be their children? Are they employed? Are they happy at the job that they have? Are they making enough money to support themselves and meet their basic needs? Are they making so much money that they're able to indulge in lots of other things? Are they in a school setting that is stable, right? So what is happening outside the focal system? What's happening on the macro level? Are they being oppressed in some way? Are they feeling like the laws that are happening, that are put upon them on the government, are helping them, or are they hurting them? How do the inside and the outside connect? Is there open boundaries or closed boundaries? Are they getting the resources that they need from the outside? Or are there a lot of needs that they have that are not being met? Are they having a significant impact on the things outside of them? Are they able to speak up and advocate for themselves? Do they have to find somebody else to help them navigate these outside systems? And then how does the system move or change over time? So is this behavior, are we seeing behavior that's typical for this system, right? Is this behavior typical for, let's say, if the system is an individual, and the individual is 5 years old, is this normal behavior for a 5-year-old? Is this the kind of thing that we typically would expect from a 5-year-old? If the individual is 35 years old, is this typical for a 35-year-old? If we've been working with the same client for 10 years, from the time they're 15 to the time they're 25, are they responding in the same way throughout that time frame, right? Or are they learning new coping skills? Are they developing or displaying patterns of behavior? So how does the system move or change over time? So these are the kinds of questions that we want to ask ourselves when we meet a client. Who is the focal system? Who's the primary client? Okay, what's happening with them? What's happening right outside of them that they're interacting with on a regular basis that could be impacting them? How are the inside and the outside connecting? So how are they impacting their outside environment? How's the outside environment impacting them? And then how are they moving or changing through time? Okay, an eco map is a way to visualize the systems impacting the focal system. So if I have the individual client right here, this is my focal system, okay, is the individual client. And then over here we have, let me do a different color. We have in their mesosystem of my individual client, we have their family, who they live with. We have their internship supervisor. We have their boss. We have their child school. We have the school that they go to, their classmates, their professors, their workload, right? We have all of those things in the mesosystem. Sorry, this isn't very smooth. Okay, and then out here, oh, let me do a different color. Over here we have their macro system. In their macro system, we have, sorry, my doorbell just rang and distracted me. In the macro system, we have the United States government. We have Suffolk County government. We have United States customs, values, things that we're raised to believe. We have over here ethnic or cultural customs or values that might be different or might be similar to what is happening in the rest of the United States. We have all of these things that are impacting us. And an eco map, when we draw it, then we can show how well these things are interacting. So let's say we have a terrible relationship with our family. We have a really good relationship with our internship supervisor. We're going to leave that right where it is. We have a really bad relationship with our boss because they're not paying us enough money. We have a pretty good relationship with our child's school. We have a bad relationship with our school because we think it costs too much money and we don't like our professors. They don't make any sense. They keep making us watch these ridiculous videos, right? Let's say on the outside here we have other things. Let's say we have a problem with some of the laws in this country, and we feel like they're causing significant problems for us. So that might be a cutoff, but maybe we're okay with the rest of it. Maybe we're okay with the customs or values of the country, and we're okay with the oh my goodness, our cultural beliefs and things that we celebrate, okay? So These things can be helpful as an assessment tool. This is definitely not the most beautiful eco map. I'm definitely going to post one that has actually been drawn and explain it in the within the module for the week. So hopefully that will make more sense. But the discussion board this week is going to be you guys describing your own eco map. I don't expect you to like, you know, draw one out and take a picture and post it, although if you want to, you're welcome to. But you should at least describe your eco map in the discussion board. So you'll see on the directions there, it will tell you to state who you would see as a focal system if you were going in for help, who you're interacting with on the micro and meso levels, and who you're interacting with on the exo level, and then the macro level. So I hope that makes sense. And again, if you guys have questions, definitely post them on the discussion board. You don't have to only post questions there. You could also post comments or thoughts if you have them. I mean, I'm sure you have thoughts, but you're welcome to post them in the Q&A section, or you can definitely email me and let me know what you think. All right, good luck with this. This one sounds complicated, guys, but what I really think the most important thing for you to remember is just that we're part of our environment, we're interacting with, we're shaped by our environment, and we're shaping our environment as we go. And it's really important that we try to find that goodness of fit. So a healthy balance with the environment around you.